What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny. Back in here, one more reaction video. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got another one, ladies and gentlemen, from Thomas Sowell. And the title of this one is What Woke Individuals Get Wrong. And that could be a broad discussion. We can say they get a lot of things wrong in life, but I'm sure Thomas is going to break it down in a real eloquent way that's going to help us be able to enlighten the masses a little more. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. You know, the goal is to reach 1 million subscribers and start 1 million thought-provoking conversations. But if we can reach 100 million people and start 100 million conversations, and we can kill the narratives in the world, we just spirits encased in human flesh trying to figure out this thing called life. We're not nearly as divided as it seems. Also, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to Brandon Tatum. I've heard that he's reacted to a video that I was on Jubilee, and I've had, maybe 200 people reach out to me, let me know he wants me on his show. So we're going to see if we can make that happen. But shout out to the homie for even putting my name, I can't say my name because he didn't know my name, but putting my face out there. And the people who knew who I was got back to immediately. So shout out to the fans and everybody who's helping this happen behind the scenes. I'm extremely grateful. Let's get into Thomas Sowell. Let's go.
To a small child, the reason he cannot do many things that he would like to do is that his parents won't let him. Many years later, maturity brings an understanding that there are underlying reasons for doing or not doing many things, and that his parents were essentially conduits for those reasons. The truly dangerous period in life is the time when the child has learned the limits of his parents' control and how to circumvent their control, but has not yet understood or accepted the underlying reasons for doing and not doing things. This adolescent period is one that some people, intellectuals especially, never outgrow. The widespread and fervent use of the word liberation in a wide variety of contexts is one of the signs of the adult.
And I just wanted to pause it right there because don't most social justice warriors conduct themselves as kids? I mean, even if they're 30 or 40 years old, they're still over-emotional. There's no logic. There's no reason. And if you can always manipulate somebody's emotions, you'll forever have them in your back pocket.
Adolescent belief that only arbitrary rules and conventions stand in the way of doing whatever we want to do. According to this vision of the world, the problems of all sorts of individuals and groups, women, minorities, homosexuals, children, are to be solved by liberating them from the restraints of laws, rules, conventions, and standards. They are to be liberated even from the threat of adverse judgments by other individuals. We are all to be non-judgmental. 2 centuries ago, the great British legal scholar William Blackstone pointed out that there are some laws so old that no one remembers why they existed or what purpose they served then or now. But the bad consequences of repealing some of these laws have often made painfully clear what purpose they served. Some of the painful consequences of various liberations that began in the 1960s have included the disintegration of families, skyrocketing crime rates, falling test scores in school, and record-breaking rates of teenage suicide. A long downward trend in teenage pregnancy and venereal diseases sharply reversed during the 19th.
You know, I like to say that slowly the inner city is becoming the plantation 2.0. Because if you keep getting taught to burn down the businesses that are there, the people who have the money will leave, and then the ones who are there will be stuck. They'll be stuck to deal with the failing public schools. The grocery stores ain't open. I can say, like, in the area I grew up in, the Family Dollar on 31st ended up shutting down. Then the Family Dollar on 29th shut down. There was only 2 grocery stores around us immediately. Wild Woody's, which is Happy Foods, and then there was a Save-A-Lot. There was a, I think it was a Sunfresh on 32nd and Linwood, but it ended up shutting down because it kept getting broken into. And then they reopened a Sunfresh on Prospect and Linwood. And the first week it was open, somebody got shot inside the store. And we would have to look at every inner city, whether it's Kansas City, Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit, Baltimore, you name it, they've all been run by Democrats since the 1960s, as Thomas Sowell pointed out.
In 60s, starting a new trend of escalating teenage pregnancy and venereal diseases, climaxed later by the AIDS epidemic. Sometimes bad things happen because of adverse.
I wasn't even born when the AIDS epidemic started, but to find out that Fauci was around back then and was involved in that as well, super fishy to me.
Circumstances, poverty or war, for example. But our post-1960s social disasters occurred during a long period of peace and unprecedented prosperity. Murder rates, for example, were much lower during the Great Depression of the 1930s and during World War II.
So anybody that tells you that the homicide rate is high because of poor people and that people are breaking in houses or doing home invasions and stealing cars because of poverty, that's not true. And it's never been true. I grew up in extreme poverty. No lights, no gas, no water. All of that. I never felt like I needed to go snatch someone's purse. I never felt like I needed to commit a crime just because we were poor.
Than they became after various liberating changes in the 1960s. One of the signs of maturity is the ability to learn from experience. Some of us have learned, and we have halted or reversed some of the adverse trends. For example, the quest for those elusive root causes of crime, so dear to the political left, has been put aside in favor of locking up more criminals, and the crime rate has declined. The left is upset that we have so many people behind bars and lament how much it is costing to keep them there. They do not even bother to estimate how much it would cost to turn them.
It gets old hearing the argument about black men in jail and the police are out targeting us. I've never been to jail in my life. Never. Not once. I've been pulled over for speeding. I've been pulled over for no insurance tickets. I've been pulled over for a lot of different things. They didn't been petty and said your tail light was out. I've been pulled over because they said my radio was too loud. But you don't have to be rude. You don't have to get hostile. You don't have to let your emotions get the best of you. My daddy always said they got a gun, you don't.
Loose. The left has never understood why property rights are a big deal, except to fat cats who own a lot of property. Through legislation and judicial rulings.
Now imagine if young black Americans were taught that ownership is the most valuable thing in America and that every man should grow up and own some land. Then we're not burning down properties when we have these riots, but we're taught that it's the white man's property. We've been slaves here forever. It don't matter to us. If you change the way you think, you change the outcome of your life, you change the frequency. So we have to teach young kids that ownership is key. Nipsey talked about it. Dolph talked about it. But they talked about it on a music standpoint. And I'm talking about on some land. Two things I think every American should own is some guns and some land. You need somewhere where can't nobody bother you. And if they come on your property, you can wipe them out and be clear of the charges.
Property rights have been eroded with rent control laws, expansive concepts of eminent domain, and all sorts of environmental restrictions. Some of the biggest losers have been people of very modest incomes, and some of the biggest winners have been fat cats who are able to use political muscle and activist judges to violate other people's property rights. Politicians in cities around the country violate property rights regularly by seizing homes in working-class neighborhoods and demolishing whole sectors of the city in order to turn the land over to people who will build shopping malls, gambling casinos, and other things that will pay more taxes than the homeowners are paying.
And that's true. My grandma lived on 33rd and Gillum, and her apartment building was like a fixed income place. It was a really nice apartment building, but that whole area has been redone by hipsters. I think the same apartment looks exactly the same. It's like $2,500 a month now. That whole area has been upgraded, and she has moved into a different, old folks area. I don't talk about my grandma, but she kind of old. I love you, Grandma.
That's why property rights were put in the Constitution in the first place, to keep politicians from doing things like that. But the adolescent intellectuals of our time have promoted the notion that property rights are just arbitrary rules to protect the rich. Many academics and federal judges are sufficiently
I will push back on that, and I would like to ask intellectual what they think about it. If everything you see around you started as an idea, I mean, every building, every tree, every car, every desk, if it was all an idea before it was manifested into this material world, meaning before someone decided to create it, then property rights would be important, because if you create some property, if you're Elon Musk, if you're Jeff Bezos, if you're a young Thomas Sowell, when you go out tomorrow and you build 20 houses or come up with some new ideas, don't you think that you should own the rights to those properties? I think as black Americans, that's where we get confused. If we all can look back at the list of black inventors who have created things since the beginning of time. George Washington Carver. All these men who have created great things. I can't think of the dude who created the oil belt for the trains, but there's a lot of great black inventions that were created, but because we don't care about property rights and ownership, it get lost away. And property ownership is extremely important to us, especially if we want to create some type of generational wealth to leave something to our kids. But if I go acquire all of this property and I can't leave it for my children because the government thinks that they deserve it, then my children are always starting over from square one. So that's property ownership is extremely important for Black America. Just all America, not Black America, but all America, because I hate the concept of color. And as I evolve on this public speaking on this podcast, I don't want to divide people. We're all Americans. We all bleed the same color. And I want to get out of that concept of my skin color makes me different than you.
Insulated from reality by tenure that they never have to grow up.
And we're going to leave it right there. But I mean, I totally agree, man. And like I said, there could be a lot of things that woke intellectuals get wrong. But when you've never lived in a bottom or in a negative situation, you can't really perceive what it takes to get out of that situation. You know, one of the wildest things in my childhood was my mom having her Section 8 inspection every year. And every year we would have to hide all of my father's things to pretend he didn't live with us. Like once a year it was clockwork. You know, we moved all his shoes, his clothes, any little thing that could make the government officials think that there was a man in the house had to be hidden and moved to my room or my little brother's room. But if my mom owned that home, no one can come in and tell her that she can't have a man there, right? No one can tell her that she can't work more than 3 months or she'll be evicted from her home. And that's why ownership is key, because so many women have been placed in a position where daddy government controls what they can and can't do. You can have another kid. You can have as much kids as you want, but don't get you a job and don't get you a good man. And that's what we need to overcome. We need strong families. We don't need anyone helping us raise our family. You know, I always tell my children, I'm Mufasa and y'all Simba in this thing, and one day y'all gonna have to take over the Pride Land. Amazing video by Thomas Sowell. More videos to come from him. Extremely intellectual, man. Hope to share his wisdom far and wide. And I can't say I'll change the world, but I hope to spark the brain that sparks the brain to change the world. Until next time, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Be the change you wish to see in the world. We out. Peace.